Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible and visible.
Yes, Rohas, we
Awesome.
can hear you. Yeah.
Awesome. So, in the middle, whenever you have questions, also, you can feel free to unmute yourselves and ask the question, or you can even type it in into the panel on the side. Just give me a few seconds and we'll start.
Sure.
So, when you're not asking a question at that time, please make sure that you are on mute so that no background noise disturbs everyone. So, hi everyone, welcome to this webinar on NFTs. So, in the media over the last few weeks, you may be reading a lot of information about NFTs and the fact that they are being sold for astronomical sums of money. I mean, some are going into millions of dollars, and it's not making much sense to most of us. So, what we're going to do in this session is let's first try to understand what NFTs are, what are the core characteristics, what are the standards that NFTs follow. Then we will understand how the metadata is stored on chain as well as off chain. And then we'll also look at some of the NFT use cases as well as some of the various platforms that you can use for minting as well as buying and selling and trading in NFTs. So let me just share my screen. Okay. So on my screen, I hope all of you are able to see a mind map. Can someone just respond with a yes, no? So I know you're able to see it.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So now when we look at this mind map, so we see right on top here, characteristics. So now for something to be considered a successful NFT or a non-fungible token, it must meet these characteristics. Now, before we even go into that, let us first try to understand what is the meaning of non-fungible and how does that compare with something called fungible. So when I talk about a currency note, can I say that all currency notes are fungible? Which means there is no difference between one currency note and the other. So if it is a 500 rupee note of India, then there should be no difference between any two 500 rupee notes and they should enjoy the same amount of coverage or recognition for everybody in our country. Am I right in saying that? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody disagrees with that? Actually, I disagree and I'll tell you why. Do you remember when demonetization happened in our country? After that, new 500 rupee notes came. So on that date or after the date of demonetization, the old 500 rupee notes suddenly had no value left. And the new 500 rupee notes had the complete value. So actually speaking, all 500 rupee notes are not fungible. So we could say, okay, the latest 500 rupee notes, all of which belong to the same series, can we say that at least they are considered fungible? Anyone?
Yeah, Ross.
You think those are considered fungible?
Yeah, whatever is legal tender accepted by the regulatories.
Mhm.
So, yeah, at that particular period of time, yes, they are fungible.
Okay. Again, I'm sorry, but I disagree. What if the note is torn? Will anybody accept it from you? No. People will say, no, we don't want to accept a torn note. Please go and get a new one. So, whenever we come to the physical world, we begin to realize that fungibility doesn't really exist. Almost everything that we consider fungible is not actually. Consider a car. You go into the showroom and you buy the two cars which are identical, same color, same model, same make. On the first day you can say they are equal in price, but one day later the prices would be different. It depends upon how clean the car is, has it got any dents in it, who is the owner. So we begin to realize that in our actual lives fungibility doesn't really exist. Fungibility begins in the digital world. So when you look at your Axis or ICICI Bank mobile application and you see in that it is 2000 rupees is your balance, those 2000 rupees are fungible assets, because there it doesn't matter anymore because they're all in a digital form. So you have 500 rupees, I have 600 rupees, somebody has 200 rupees. As long as they are digital rupees, they are considered totally fungible. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say and you agree with what I'm trying to say. Any questions so far? Is it absolutely clear? Anyone? Yes, no, all clear?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's clear.
yes,
Oh,
yes, yes.
awesome. Now that we've understood what NFTs or non-fungible tokens are, let's see how they work. So they must have these various characteristics. First one, standardization. So when we are talking about an NFT, it should be standardized. So we must have certain criteria or certain points in all of them. So if you're an Ethereum developer, you know the concept of ERC20 tokens. Now these are tokens that you are creating for even crypto tokens and other kind of projects that you're running. So a smart contract would lay down what kind of information should be put, what should each variable be called, what kind of languages are supported when you're creating. So a standard is created that this is how it should be. So similarly, when we talk about NFTs, first thing is there has to be standardization. Now for that, you can see here standards. There are four standards that are there today: ERC 721, ERC 1155, ERC 998, and the DGOOD standard. Now what I see happening in practicality is ERC 721 happens to be the most popular as of today, primarily because it's a stable and mature standard, and it is of course running on Ethereum. But even DGOODs is doing pretty well. So that's the standardization. Second point, which is very important, is interoperability. See, now there may be hundreds of different NFT platforms, and I'm going to discuss 5, 6 of them today. Now, the question that will arise is, can the asset or NFT created on one platform be traded on another platform? If it is not like that, then it is not very sensible, because there are 100 platforms. I have created on platform number one. Now, if I can only sell to people on platform number one, that's a very small marketplace for me, which is why it is essential that your NFTs are interoperable across the board, across all the different platforms that exist. So that's point number two. Point number three, naturally, is tradability. It should be easy for anybody to buy, sell, and trade these NFTs. So that tradability has to be there. Now, for tradability, we need a concept of trading pairs. Now, what does that mean? Whenever you go, like even if you go to the stock exchange, you go to the foreign exchange counters, or you talk about cryptos, there is always a concept of trading pair. So we say BTC to dollar, BTC to euro, BTC to INR. So you have to give a trading pair. So similarly, when you're putting up an NFT or considering buying it, you need to know what is the price of that in INR, price of that in USD, price of that in ETH, and various other currencies. So that's what we mean by the tradability. Fourth point, and one of the most critical, liquidity. Liquidity means how much supply is there at any given point and how much demand is also there. Because when I want to purchase, I should be able to purchase easily. And when I want to sell, I should be able to sell easily. When you go to the stock exchanges or even the crypto exchanges, all cryptos are not highly liquid. So while at any point of time, it is very easy for you to buy and sell Bitcoin or Ethereum, there are some cryptos which are very thinly traded. At any given point of time, the demand and supply is very low. So it's not a good idea to buy those, because when the time comes for you to sell, you may not find a buyer. So liquidity means the demand and supply of that particular NFT and how easy is it to buy and sell that. Then fifth is immutability. That is a core feature of any blockchain. Immutability means the ability to prove that there has been no tampering. That is core principle of all the blockchains in the world. That once data has moved on to it, whether it's a transaction or it's data, once it's on the blockchain, it should not be changeable. The system should not allow anyone to change it. And that is the meaning of immutability. And naturally, NFTs have to have it. Then we have provable scarcity. Now, that's a very interesting concept. Let's talk about paintings. I'm sure all of you have heard about the Mona Lisa, famous painting, but it is only inside one museum. But you can take photographs and then print it out and sell millions of reprints. So naturally, the cost of the reprint is low because anybody can create unlimited number of printouts. So there is no scarcity. There is just too much supply. And in fact, that is the case even if you look at a crypto like Dogecoin, which is unlimited. They can keep mining unlimited quantities, but Bitcoin on the other hand is limited. Only 21 million will be issued by the year 2140 AD. So Bitcoin also has provable scarcity, fixed quantity. So in an NFT, it is essential for us to be able to prove the numbers. How scarce or how rare is this? The more rare, naturally, people will be ready to pay more money. And finally, I would say one of the most critical aspects, programmability. So because it is on the blockchain, we should be able to program NFTs to interact with different kinds of softwares, different platforms, and different ecosystems. Questions? Does anyone have questions on this, on the characteristics? Yes, no, can you maybe, yeah.
No, none of this point, Rahul.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, let me show you some of the platforms. So I don't know, many of you may have heard about CryptoKitties. So this was probably one of the first NFT platforms that became very, very popular. Now, yeah, it's a cute looking site and they've got these cartoonish looking cats. Now, it is not really just a cartoon. Like, someone has made a cartoon and you're buying and selling. No, it's actually quite different. So it's got a whole bunch of things here. So one is, of course, you can buy and sell these cats. You can create collections of these cats. One very important thing is you can breed cats and unlock some special traits. So suppose you want a cat to have a particular kind of an eye color or a particular kind of costume. So actually in this, they have tried to go into the real world. So, in the real world, when you look at horses and you look at pedigree dogs, there is the concept that if you own the male dog or the male horse and it is from a very high pedigree, then you can charge somebody who has the female version, and the two animals will mate, and the children that are created then belong to the person who owned the female, and the person who owned the male is given some kind of money in return. So they've tried to bring that concept here, where you can actually take two cats which could be owned by different people, breed them. Ultimately these are all smart contracts, but when you breed them, then a new cat comes, and then you can share in the economic value of that cat. It's also got a whole bunch of puzzles. Then you've got limited edition cats which are there, and then there are a lot of games around it. So this actually picked up a lot of popularity, I think somewhere in 2018, when it was around the time of the ICO boom. Subsequently, then people lost interest, but now again they seem to be coming back into action. So this is one example of an NFT. Another very interesting example, or a site which I've used because I found it quite reasonable. And after this session, maybe some of you can experiment with this. It is called Cargo. So you can see the URL cargo.build. Now here, when you go to their first page, there are two things. You can browse the marketplace if you're looking to buy, or you can start creating. Now, when I go on start creating, it shows me an interface, something like this. Now, let me explain to you the differences. Now, firstly, they have a concept called magic minting, and then they have a concept called single NFT. Now, this is a more common feature, so let me first explain. If you want to create your own NFT, that means you are going to create an ERC-721 token on Ethereum using Cargo's shared smart contract. So it is not a dedicated smart contract for you. It is going to be a smart contract created by Cargo, and all their customers or contracts of that time will be mined together in that. So naturally the cost is a little cheaper, but you still have to pay the gas fees. And I think when I checked a couple of days ago, it was costing me about $50 for one NFT. So I found that pretty expensive. So then I went for the second option of theirs, which is called as the magic minting. Now, magic minting is fairly straightforward. What you do is you have to first give your collection a name. So here you can write whatever collection you want. Then you can give it a description. So some kind of a description. This later we'll come back to that, but basically you're going to enter your credit card number, expiry date, and the CVC number. Then in the files, now this is where the fun begins. This is not your NFT. Now you have to realize that the NFT is a smart contract which comprises multiple things. Firstly, it comprises a name, a description. Then it can have an image which reflects what does the NFT signify. It's like your profile, you can say. So here you can enter anything. Then you can add additional display content. So you can add an MP3. So suppose you're a musician. So what you could do here is you could put your own photograph, maybe playing the piano, a photograph of you at the piano. Here in the audio, you could upload an MP3 of you giving some of the compositions that you have made. You can also enter videos. So maybe a video of you giving a rock show, a concert somewhere. Then you can add 3D files also. And you can add a lot of different information here. So now here, they have a concept, files to lock within a collectible. Anybody in the world, when he goes to the marketplace, he can see basic information about your collectible, but he cannot see this. This is secret information, which is only going to be visible to somebody who has purchased your collectible. So now inside this, you can put whatever you feel like. So let's say you're a celebrity. you could click certain pictures which you are never going to release on the internet. And those photographs you could zip and put them here. So that is what is going to be locked and kept inside. And finally, you can enter custom metadata. So anything in JSON value, whatever information you feel like entering, you can enter that information here. And after you have filled it all, enter your card number and press create. 10 to 15 seconds later, it costs just $2. Your NFT gets created. Let me show you an example of an NFT that I've already created. So this is what I created for my daughter. So now this is a painting that she has made. Obviously the painting is in hard copy. I clicked the photo of that painting and uploaded it as that profile picture kind of a thing. Then I gave it the title, Sanya's Vision of To the Lighthouse. So To the Lighthouse is a particular book. Her vision of that book is what she's painted here. So that's what I've given the title. Then a small description. So digital image of an acrylic on canvas painting titled To the Lighthouse by Sanya Lakhwal. So it's very clear to understand what this is. I am the owner of the collectible. The collection name, they have given it automatically because I've used that $2 version. So it says Cargo Magic Minting. This we can leave. We're not using their native tokens, which are gems. They have given me the collection address. So we can copy it and look at it. This is our smart contract address. This is the token number they have given. And now there is something unlockable inside this. So we can unlock that because I'm the creator. It is not yet sold. So I'm able to make changes here. I can even manage this collectible. So when I go to manage this collectible, it's taken me back to the main site, unfortunately. Okay, doesn't matter. Now this is where we had created it from. So we had used this magic minting option. And whenever we look at all our NFTs, if we click on them, the details open up here. And as you can see from here, the price of this is 0.0065 ETH, which is approximately $10. So this is just a sample that I have created. Yes, my daughter is making funny faces at me because she says it is priced too cheaply, but it's just as a demo. And then of course, from here, I can transfer it to somebody, which means one option is the person goes to the marketplace and buys it. The second option is I can click here and transfer it to somebody. Now, whatever we do on this side, we are going to need an Ethereum wallet. So I would recommend that you use the MetaMask. As we are using this site, instead of username passwords, every time we do any action, it asks us to sign it using our MetaMask wallet. So here I can enter someone's Ethereum address. So, let me just go back. Yeah. Here I can enter their Ethereum address, enter it again, and I can transfer the collectible. Once I do it, the collectible has gone and now it goes into that person's Ethereum wallet. And I no longer have any control left over it. Questions?
Excuse me.
Yes.
So sir, this is like a single NFT, right? So we can have multiple NFTs like this, and it will cost $2 per NFT we create.
That is absolutely correct. So every NFT that we are creating, as long as we use the magic minting, it is only going to cost us $1.99 per NFT. But if we go to this single option, in that case, it is going to be your complete smart contract, and that is why you're paying the gas fee, and then it'll go to $50. So you are going to end up
But we
paying
can't afford that.
well, if your paintings sell for thousands of dollars or some people are selling for millions, then you can afford to pay it. Otherwise, you're quite right. It is quite expensive. But
Yes.
I found this to be one of the best and easiest to use platform. There is another very interesting one which is called as the OpenSea. Now, in OpenSea, it is also the largest marketplace, one of the oldest. Now, here they do not have that $2 option. So here it is going to be bare minimum of $50. So compared to that, at least I found in Cargo, we have both the options, the Sasta option of $2 and the expensive one.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, most welcome. Other questions?
So is there
So-
only option to is there only option to select the ETH, or there are other NFTs out there that we can?
Excellent question. I have not come across any NFT platform which is non-Ethereum based. So all the ones that I have seen so far, I'm finding that all of them are running on Ethereum. I'll continue to look for more, but I don't know if anybody in the audience, have you come across something which is on another platform apart from ETH, I mean Ethereum?
No. So one more question.
Yeah.
You said that you need to use a hard wallet like MetaMask.
Right.
Is it possible for us to connect an Indian exchange to the address rather than using a hard wallet like MetaMask? Because not many people may have a hard wallet
That's a very good
currently,
point.
because the
That-
knowledge on that is still very lax.
Yes, that's a very good point. So, no, as of right now, at least Cargo, which is the one I've used, they don't allow you to do that. So there are different options. I mean, there may be others which do allow, but I have again not come across anyone which allows that to be done. See, another thing what Cargo is doing is everything that you do on the Cargo platform, whether you are creating NFTs and all, at different stages, it keeps asking you to sign the transaction. And again, that is something you will not be able to do when you're connected to an exchange. The exchange will only be able to move ETH, but MetaMask being inside your browser allows you to sign. So that is the reason it is only you have to use that.
Got it.
Other questions? Does anybody have other questions? So this is what would happen if you click on create single NFT. Again, it is more or less the same. The only difference being here, instead of asking you for your credit card information, it is going to take those credits from you. So now here you need two things. One is you need to give credits in their native crypto, plus you need to give gas fee. So here, if you don't have enough of that, then you can buy it. And then your connected wallet will have to pay that money, and only then will it get created.
Are there any real world kind of transactions that's been happening on this Cargo platform?
It's a good question. So if you look at the marketplace of Cargo,
I mean, hypothetically, what you're saying makes sense, but I'm just
they've got tons of
kind
it.
of
They have tons of it. So if you look here, there are so many different showcases, and then you can go into any one of them, and yeah, so you can start seeing what all is there, and then for each of them you can go and see their history. So yes, you will find quite a few that have been purchased and sold.
okay.
This is one example of it. Honestly, most of the drawings I find pretty weird, but then again, it's artistic, so I guess some people like this kind of thing. But yes,
Right.
they have a lot of different kinds of things. Plus, when you look at marketplaces, I'll show you a slightly better example. Just give me a second. Yeah, so we have this marketplace which is called Mint Base. Now, in this, they have gaming, they have tickets, they have art, they have photography, news. So they have different kinds of things also that you can do. So in fact, let me here go back to this thing. Now, when we talk about use cases, the most common use case we find is trading cards. Now, I don't know, have any of you ever collected those at, okay, when I was a kid, we used to have those cars, fancy cars, and used to get collectible cards. So it had the photo of a car and then some information about the top speed
Yes.
and other things. Yeah, so we used to collect those.
Cricket
Then later,
attacks.
pardon?
Cricket attacks for IPL.
Then much later, yes, we started with collecting IPL. Then in the US, you have these baseball cards, which are very popular. So trading of cards is a very, very big use case. Then very interestingly, I found that people are buying and selling domains through this. So, on Ethereum, people run their own domain system. It's called ENS, I think Ethereum Naming Service. So people are actually buying and selling domains as NFTs. Then, of course, there is digital art, which according to me is one of the best use cases. Then there are collectibles of different kinds of things that you could have. Now, when we talk about collectible, now let's have a slightly bigger discussion on that. Now, a lot of you may find it weird that why would people collect digital stuff? But you know what? We have to be a little open-minded. Let's look back. At some point of time in the evolution of humans, somebody found a diamond. Now, the first guy who found the diamond, it's ultimately just a shiny piece of rock. What's the big deal about it? But then when he showed it to other people, people said, wow, this looks nice and I'm ready to pay a lot of money for it. And today we have a world where diamonds are really expensive. But do you know there is something called the zirconian or cubic zirconian something, which is like a fake diamond. Nobody can make out that it's fake unless you're a qualified, skilled jeweler. A normal person will look at an original diamond and a zirconian and say it's the same. But still, the price difference may be 100 times or 1,000 times. So now my question to you is, when the fake diamond looks the same, why do people pay for the real diamond? Well, that's their attitude. They're ready to pay for it. So when we talk about NFTs, people are ready to pay for it, which means it's an asset class. Now we say that it doesn't make sense to us. Great for you. It doesn't make sense to you. Bitcoin also doesn't make sense to a lot of people. So they can stay out of it. For some people, gold doesn't make sense. For some people, stock market doesn't make sense. Your call. But what I'm beginning to see a lot is digital art is beginning to sell. And the logic behind it is very simple. Many years ago, a friend of mine bought an MF Hussain reprint. Now, you may have heard about MF Hussain. He's a famous Indian artist, passed away a few years ago. So he's created a series of paintings on horses. The original painting is extremely expensive. So the artist himself got reprints made, and each reprint he gave a number and signed it. And he sold the reprints, obviously not as expensive as the original, but still pretty expensive. I think 50,000 rupees per reprint. And yes, there were a lot of people who bought reprints. So similarly, I believe there will be people who would want to buy limited editions of the digital versions of real paintings. So let's take an example of Mona Lisa. Anybody could get the image of Mona Lisa from the internet. But suppose the museum which is holding the original Mona Lisa creates a very high resolution digital version, says, I am only going to release 50 of these, and then prices each. I'm sure a lot of people may end up buying. In fact, I'll give you another example which is relating to the stamps. Have any of you ever collected stamps as a hobby?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I
Awesome.
still have it.
Yes.
Oh, great. I also still have it and I really like that, but not too many people nowadays do it. So let me show you one crypto stamp. Just give me a second. Yeah. So now this was created by the Postal Department of Austria a few years ago. It opens up. Yeah. So they called it the crypto stamp. So this was the world's first ever blockchain stamp made by this Austrian post office. Now this is a stamp that can be used for postage purposes and also has a digital image within the blockchain. So what happens is here, this is what it would look like. Now, when you see this stamp, this area which has the QR code, you actually scratch it out. So you are the owner, you bought the stamp. You scratch this out. Then you scan this QR code with your app. Now it gives you a tiny amount of ETH and it gives you the blockchain address of this particular smart contract. And now you own that. So that is the reason you first scratch this QR code, transfer it to your own wallet. After that, you can now put this and send it in an envelope to somebody. Now nobody else can use your QR code and steal that ETH because that signifies you are the owner of this stamp. So I found this a very nice thing that they did, and I think they did it 2 or 3 times. Every year they've done one so far. So now they are already working on the version 3.0 of this. So I believe this could be the next level in stamp collecting. Like today, you may all have a stamp collection, but your stamp collection may be in your native place. You may be staying in a different city. How do you look at your stamp collection anymore? So maybe if your stamp collection is in a smart contract like this, wherever you are in the world, you can go through it and feel happy looking at your collection. You can show it to other people. And plus, the value of this will go up if there are limited number of such stamps. So suppose we know that of this, they created only 100. Automatically, the value becomes high. And that is how this whole concept works. You can have a look at this site later. It's called crypto.post.at. And it's quite simple and easy to understand. And they are also, I think, building other collections. Yeah. You can create your collection, but again, it would require a wallet browser with MetaMask in it so that you can use that. Yeah. So this wallet, of course, which I've connected is empty because it's for a demo, but you would need a wallet which has money in it, and then you can go around purchasing and using this. And what they did is one of their coins they gave away free. So people around the world bid put in their names in a lucky draw, and the one winner was then given the final version of it, and then he's free to sell it if he wants. Questions? Is this part clear? What we spoke about, the crypto stamps? So stamp collectors here, you could think about it, and I think it may be a good idea if the Indian Postal Department starts to issue stuff like this, because naturally today postal is not really so relevant anymore because people are using digital or courier services. So this could actually create a new revenue stream for them. Of course, you could also do your own business. So let's say you yourself have a rare stamp. You could create a digital version of that stamp and sell it as a smart contract. Who's stopping you? So you are creating an NFT out of a stamp which you have purchased. The logic being not too many people in the world have it because it's rare. So you are one of the owners, you could create it. Again, there's no rule against it. I'm not aware of any laws. I mean, I will talk a little bit more about the intellectual property aspect. But as of today, I'm not really aware of any law which would stop you from doing this. Because when you purchase the stamp, well, effectively you are buying it out. It's yours. So you can take photos of it and sell the photo. Nobody can really stop you. Questions?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Could you can you just go back on the topic for trading cards? Actually, I think I have like hundreds of trading cards in physical condition, in mint condition. I think it's somewhere in my shelf. I haven't looked them up in a very long time. But it's if so like I'm supposed to like take pictures of them and put them as NFT, so I can do that, right?
Yeah, so that, in fact, let me give you an example. Yeah, this is the perfect one for it. Now, unfortunately, since morning it's been down for maintenance, but this is called NBATopshot.com. If you
Okay.
can note that down. Yeah, you go to this site because they are specifically made for these NBA cards, these trading cards. So I would recommend you should try this one out. I'm hoping it will be back up later today. So this is the one that you should try and see how it actually works. So here you have different prices. So the common packs are $9 and the expensive ones are $99. Now there's one more thing that I can tell you. If you're talking about you have these physical cards, you could actually sell the physical cards along with the NFT of it. So let us say that you have this rare physical card. Now you tell somebody that if you want to buy this rare physical card, I will give it to you along with the NFT of it. So you can charge a higher price and then give both together. So now that person has the physical card plus he has only one copy of the NFT of it. So you could make actually more money that way. So that's a second option that you have available. So now in this
Right.
case, your hard copy is going along with an NFT, which becomes like a ownership point. See, otherwise, let's say that somebody looks at a hard card. How do you know this is real or fake? Like the same problem can happen in postage stamps. You don't know whether it's real or fake. So in this example, at least person would know that it is not fake because an NFT matches it.
So,
Okay.
Rohas, one more question. Like, I don't have like much background on the NFT, but what I understood from the session is like the scarcity of the resources determines the quality and right. And how are you going to predict the price of a NFT contract? How much? How can I say like this is costing this much?
Okay. Now that's a very, very difficult, if not impossible question to answer. Let me tell you why. It is like, how do we predict the price of Bitcoin? We don't know. In the stock exchange, because stock markets have been around for centuries, there are lots of mathematical formulae and graphs available based on which we can do predictions, which are never 100% right. Crypto is very new, so we anyway have it difficult. So I have developed my own system which uses 16 different criteria to calculate the cost of a crypto. Unfortunately for NFT, it is so new that nobody in the world really knows how to value. And in fact, I'll give you one of the craziest examples where they are talking about, let me show it to you, buying and selling tweets. Now, honestly speaking, this made zero sense to me. I don't know, I forgot the name of who is the person who started Twitter?
Jack Dorsey.
Correct.
Dorsey.
Right now, today
He
I
sold
read-
he sold the first tweet
I
yesterday.
don't think it's sold. I think he's put it for auction and already he's getting a huge bid. He is selling the first tweet. Now, I will be very honest with you. I don't understand what that means. I mean, anybody can go and see your tweet at any time. Now, on this site, it's called v.cent.co, valuables, and it's by a company called Cent. This is meant only for buying and selling tweets, which are autographed by their original creators. So, one thing I could say is, you remember at one time we used to try to take autographs of cricketers and film stars? Any of you ever done that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So now imagine you've taken the autograph of somebody who has passed away. Will that mean that that autograph now becomes more valuable?
Right.
Now imagine the
Yes.
same thing. Let's say Elon Musk says that, okay, I will sell some of my tweets. So now this gentleman here has actually offered $20 for an Elon Musk tweet where he says on Feb 10th, 2021, I bought some doggy coin for whatever Lex, which is the name of his child. So he can be a toddler. Now, this guy has bid $20. Now, I'll be very honest. Are any of you ready to buy an Elon Musk tweet for $20?
No.
Be honest.
No.
Okay, I
No,
am.
Not today.
but I
Not
don't
today.
understand how will
Of course,
we
no.
how will we kind of evaluate whether this guy holds the ownership of this tweet of Elon Musk?
Correct. Now, that's a very good question. Now, we will obviously try to get some. So maybe if Elon Musk starts to do this, so Elon Musk could post somewhere on his official Twitter handle where we can see the blue tick, and he says that, yes, my tweets are available for sale through this platform only. So then we know, okay, fine, it's available here. And then we can go and see who is the owner. I'll be very honest, it may sound dumb, but I'm ready to pay $20 because I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. So if I am guaranteed that one tweet is sold only to one person, then yes, some of his tweets, which were like world changing, maybe not relating to Bitcoin, it may be relating to the Tesla project or his SpaceX project or something else. I'm ready to buy that out for $20, $30. And just because it will give me the satisfaction that I'm the only one person in the world who owns that tweet, whatever the meaning of that. It's a new thing. Like I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I wanted to participate in an auction where Gandhiji's spectacles were going to be auctioned. Would any of you want to bid for that?
It depends on the interest of a person.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
So now I was ready to spend a reasonably good amount of money, but I think finally, I think Vijay Mallya bought it out for 20 lakh rupees or something. I obviously did not have that much money to bid. And in that same auction, I think Vijay Mallya also bought the sword of Tipu Sultan. Now the point is, again, being a big fan of Gandhiji, I'm ready to buy a pair of spectacles that he used. It doesn't have any real value, so to say. But I would feel very happy if I could wake up every morning and look at it. And in fact, I planned that I would actually put glasses in it and wear it and roam around. And maybe that's the closest I could get to a person of that stature. So you know what? It is totally up to you. If you feel value in it, you're going to buy it. I wouldn't mind buying tweets, provided they only sell it to one person. Similarly, you've got to realize that who is likely to buy it and then see how fanatic are they and how much are they ready to pay for it. It's very difficult to predict, but how much people will pay. Questions? Does anyone have other questions?
Is it a problem with your connection or is that mine?
Am I audible to everyone?
Yeah, you got froze for a while,
Okay.
Raj.
Now am I audible to everyone?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, yeah.
Questions? Go back to my screen otherwise. Just a sec. No. So like I said, this site is dedicated to tweets. There is one site which I showed you, which is dedicated to the trading cards. Then there is another one which is called Sing. Now this has got a slightly different concept where it says it is the best platform on the planet for creators to turn ideas into NFTs and store them in a digital portfolio. So it's a slightly different concept where now what they're doing is whatever ideas that you get, you can share your idea. So you could use your app, for example, your phone, and you could explain your idea, and then that idea can get encrypted and stored inside the blockchain. So let's say that, I've come out with some very interesting concept. Now, how do I protect that concept today in the world? So have all of you heard about things like copyright, trademark, patents? Have you heard
Yeah,
about
yeah. It's like patenting.
Yes.
Yeah.
when we talk about copyright, what does it mean? That when it is some literary artistic work, computer software, book, movie, songs, they can be registered with the government and you get a copyright, which means nobody can copy without your permission and they need to pay you money. So the lady who wrote the Harry Potter series of books, she sold the movie rights to somebody, translating her book into Chinese to somebody else, Hindi to somebody else. So all these rights she was able to sell because she has a copyright. Now, when we look at the digital world, every time that you create a YouTube video, you write a post on social media, you are actually the copyright owner of that, even if it is not registered. Registering a copyright is optional globally. There is under the Berne Convention, it says that it is not mandatory. But if you don't register it, tomorrow, if you want to file a case, how will you prove that you are the original creator? So people prefer to register copyrights. But that costs money and takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of manual work required. Now imagine instead of that, you go to this platform and put an image of whatever you have created even before it is completely ready. The platform now encrypts and stores it inside. 3 years later, somebody comes out with something which looks the same. Now you can go to court and say, look, on the blockchain, 3 years ago, I had put this. What this guy has created is very similar. So he has copied my idea. And in that case, you have some kind of proof that this was there. So that is one of the big advantages where content creators today, especially those who are creating digital content, can put that on the blockchain through platforms like this and thereby get IPR protection. Does that make sense? Do you have questions on this?
Excuse me,
Yeah,
sir. Um,
go ahead, Ishan.
so sir, thank you. Can we expect T Series to like put all their music on blockchain by the end of the year?
Unfortunately, I cannot answer this on behalf of them. But yes, I'll tell you where I see a value add to them. Now, let's say T series, or okay, let's not take T series as an example because music is a little more restrictive. Let's talk about books or maybe even computer software. In fact, computer software is a better example. Suppose I have given you a license to use my software. Now, how is that license going to be? So, in future, I could issue licenses to software through NFT. So whenever anybody wants to verify whether you have the license or not, you could check on the blockchain. If suppose I've written a book and then I've said, okay, the rights to translate my book into Hindi are given to so and so person, and that again is put onto the blockchain in an NFT. Of course, we could do it for music also. So suppose somebody else in the world wants to use this music, like T Series comes out with a very hit song, and somebody else wants to put a few minutes of that song into their movie, or somebody wants to add some kind of disco beats to it and make a remix version. They could buy the license, and the NFT could show who is the license owner for that. So definitely for people like T Series, it may make a lot of sense.
Sir, one more thing. Like, there are a lot of students, such as myself in college, like, we can't afford to buy expensive softwares like FCP because it's like 30,000. So we tend to use cracked versions. So will NFTs put an end to cracked versions?
Well, that's a very good point. And yes, there is a way in which to do it. So now what would happen is NFT is running on Ethereum. We also realize, or whatever blockchain. But one of the points, if you recall, was I told you NFT should be programmable. And you also realize when I showed you that we were creating it on Cargo, that it was allowing us to add information as JSON. So it is very possible that when somebody creates this NFT, that API is linked to the software. So now what this company could do is it could give out cheaper licenses, or it could say that when you buy a license to my software, it is going to be issued as an NFT on the blockchain, which means every time you start the software, it could get authentication from the NFT. And that may make it quite difficult for people to use cracked version. It hasn't happened yet, but it is quite possible that it can be done.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is interesting, Rose. Yeah.
Do you want me to add some more about this? Let me explain. I have a few more
Yes,
ideas.
please. Yeah.
Like, let me ask you. Now, I come from a hacking cybercrime background, so I know how you can bypass a lot of these security measures. So, have you heard of the host.txt file in a computer?
Yes.
Okay. So, every computer in the world from day one had this text file, which would have the names of all the servers on the internet and their IP addresses, because initially there were very few such machines. Now, as the number has gone to billions, that host file is usually blank, and you have DNS servers for this. But you'll be surprised to know that the host file is still in every computer. So, one way in which people hack software is that they will install the software and then they will go and read the host.txt file. And every time you install a software, like for example, okay, I don't want to name the software, it makes some entries in your host file, which is the IP addresses of their servers. Every time that you start up the software tries to connect to their website. How does it get the IP of their website? Through your host file. So if you're clever, you would go and comment out that line and replace that IP address with your local 127.0.0.1 IP address. Now, whenever you start the software, it hits your host file, and instead of going to their website, it goes back to the local host, which is your machine, does not find an answer, doesn't know whether it is a licensed version or not, and opens up the software for you. Now, if companies start to use NFTs, you will not be able to bypass this way, because in the software itself now, they will hard code the smart code address. The moment the software opens, it will try to go to that smart code and check the person opening it whether the fingerprint of his computer matches what is registered there on the NFT. And if yes, open the software. If no, shut the software. So it could put an end to software piracy. I hope that made sense to you guys.
Yeah, provided he is connected.
Yeah. Well, in that case, if you're not connected, they may probably not open the software up for you. They may make it mandatory that you have to be connected to the internet, or they may even come out with a DEX version or a distributed version of doing it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I believe that may be the future.
So there's a question that I had. So once you place it on the marketplace, so let's say you create something with cargo and you place it on the cargo marketplace itself. And hypothetically, let's say it's somebody purchases it and it's sold for X amount of money. Now, once it is sold, where does the NFT goes away? So it's no longer in your possession. You're no longer the owner of it. It goes to the person who's purchased it, and he or she transfers the equivalent amount into the wallet. Now, how do you withdraw that amount, or have you ever tried doing that?
Yeah, sure. So what happens is the money is paid to you in your MEW wallet or your MetaMask. So it's your, in fact, you even have the private keys to it. And that is why keeping it in such kind of a wallet is much safer than keeping it in an exchange when it's a long-term period. So that money goes into your wallet and you can use it or you can encash it. And that is the reason you will find most of these transactions happen in ETH and not in the smaller native tokens of these NFT platforms, because the liquidity is higher in ETH. But it's very easy to convert your ETH to cash. So you could even from your wallet transfer it to an exchange and then from there encash it into your bank account also.
So, Rohas, we have seen this. Sorry, guys. We have seen this, government of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, they have started kind of converting those physical assets like land and all into the blockchain and all. So how does this relate to this NFT or non-fungible assets? And can you put some light on that?
Now what happens is when the government of India is digitizing, so what they are doing is actually not tokenizing, they're digitizing. So these are two very different concepts. Digitization simply means converting something which was electronic to something which is digital. Something which was physical to something which is digital. So your paper-based land records are now scanned and put onto a digital system, and it's a database. Tokenization changes everything from a legal point of view, where the token can now represent that. I'll give you an example of shares in a company. Shares in the company are today in digital form. You hold it in your demat account, but they actually represent ownership of the company. So when you buy shares in Reliance, you are actually buying ownership. So if you buy 1% of the shares of Reliance, you are 1% owner of all the properties of Reliance. So that's the difference between digitization and tokenization. So when you look at the Andhra government and all, when they're digitizing land records, that's called digitization only. So it's to make things easier, but the paper record will still be there. And that will be the ultimate thing. So you will have to actually still sign on paper. But when it comes to tokenization, everything happens in digital form, no paper needed anymore. So when you buy and sell shares on a stock exchange, you do not need to sign any paper-based document. Everything can happen digitally. So that's the difference between the two.
No, but apart from the digitization, I heard, I don't know how much it's true, but they have also started putting this digital assets into the blockchain, meaning that your land record is having an asset ID and that is into the blockchain.
No.
Probably that might be at the pilot phase. I don't know.
Yeah, it may be only pilot because right now that cannot be done. You will have to make amendments to the Information Technology Act, because the Information Technology Act says that there are certain things you cannot put into digital form. They will not have the same value. One of them is land records, and another of them is wills. A will that a person makes that after my death. So these are specifically excluded. So when the law is amended, only then you will be able to put land into blockchain. And honestly, that is not something that should be done now. Maybe it will happen after decades, because land and wills, I mean, these are very critical. People are not tech savvy enough to do it, so it'll probably take decades before that happens.
Okay.
Somebody else had a question?
Rohas, my question was that if I see the examples or what is happening right now in the marketplace here, they are more B2C kind of, sorry, it is C2C kind of a scenarios. I'm a creator of a thing, I want to sell it, so I use this technology to get it to more users. What is the, let's say, how fast you see this technology is getting adapted in more B2B world, where you are doing these kind of deals with the companies to another company, or making a, let's say, transaction in one way, buying assets or selling assets of the companies, licensing it, cross-licensing this. So how early you see those things happening?
I very strongly think that we are going to see this happening in 2021 itself. Tesla, being a limited company, buying over Bitcoin, more than $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, is a very positive move in that direction. And the US regulators did not say anything. In fact, for them also, it was a testing that would they say anything. The SEC said nothing. So that means now any listed company in the US can buy crypto. Next step is NFTs. That's even simpler to implement because all that you're doing in an NFTs, you're not actually creating cryptocurrencies out of thin air. You are simply digitizing in a way your physical contract. So I think we will start to see this very soon, where let's say you are licensing out your technology. So now coming back, we spoke about copyright. What about a trademark? Like the word McDonald's is a trademark. Or what about the way in which you make something? Like suppose you make a particular medicine, you get a patent over it. Now you could grant the patent license to 20 people. So on the blockchain, you would create that patent as an NFT and say it is divided into 20 parts. And these are the people who have purchased it. After that, somebody who has bought your license, he will now be able to directly sell it to somebody else. And that would be a brand new revenue stream, which today does not exist. So I believe the pharma industry would be one of the first people to take this up. And I probably expect to see that in this year itself, we would start seeing that to happen. Maybe with people developing the COVID vaccine, some of the patents for that could be distributed using NFTs. So I strongly believe B2B use cases should start anytime this year. But of course, there are certain core problems that need to be solved. It cannot only happen on ETH. Then there are two reasons. It is not just about the money. On the ETH platform, there is no concept of KYC. You don't know the other person. So what if you end up dealing with somebody located in a banned country? Like, there are FATF and other organizations which have made a blacklist that these are the countries which are on the blacklist for money laundering. So you are not allowed to deal with them. And if you deal with them, you will get blacklisted. How do you know? So if you are dealing with random anonymous strangers, you don't know who you're dealing with, and that could lead to a big problem. So I believe the solution is going to be you need a platform where firstly you can pay directly using your card and all. So there's no need for ETH because that's not easy for people to pay. Plus ETH value goes up and down too much. And secondly, everybody is KYC'd on the platform so that tomorrow from a legal point of view, you don't face any problems. So I believe once those two problems are solved, I think we can start to see use cases very soon. In fact, maybe some of you people on this call would want to probably start something in that direction. I am also working on an NFT project. And if you guys feel that we can collaborate, you can always email me directly later and we'll have a separate call and I'll explain to you what I'm trying to do. And if some of you are working in the same direction, we can come together and do something. Because I believe India is a very large market for this. Consider all the tribal art which is there in our country. A lot of this tribal art and craft and handicrafts is slowly getting wiped out. If we are able to bring all that onto NFTs, we could give so much of livelihood to people in these small tribal areas. And of course, we could make a lot of money also. So I think it has a huge social impact in our country, and we should probably be one of the first to get into NFT.
I strongly believe that because see, Indians are quite savvy with tech, especially the young generations here. So, and they are the people who can actually make this happen quite soon than the Western countries here. They are still actually playing games here.
I totally agree with you. Does anybody else have any questions? So now,
Rose,
yeah, please tell me.
so what's your opinion on the people who are looking at more of these cryptos as more of the investment options and looking forward for making and printing money? What's your take on that?
Okay, sure. So although that's a little different from the NFT discussion, but honestly speaking, I think cryptos are one of the greatest inventions. Very good investment, but there are some very fundamental mistakes that people work. So what I'm going to do is next week I'm going to have another session on the common mistakes that we make when we look at crypto. So at that time I will actually cover this in depth. And what I can also recommend to you is if you can download my book, which is called the Future Money Playbook. So if you just
Okay.
go to my site rohasnagpal.com, you can download it for free. Next week I'm updating that book by adding a section on NFTs also. But anyway, you can download the book today itself. But once you read the book, a lot of your basic questions will actually get answered. And next week, like I said, I'm going to do another session where I'll answer the specific questions that you are asking.
Oh, thank you.
Most welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So one last question.
Sure.
Like let's say in real life, let's say we want to keep a track of what's going on in the market in general. Like we're able to see that what goods are trending, what's not, or what collectibles are trending. So is there like a platform that exists for NFTs that these particular NFTs are really trending right now?
Absolutely. There are a couple. So offhand, don't recall the URL, but next week when I update my Future Money Playbook, I'm adding a section on NFTs, and I'll be putting the list of all these sites also. I did find one very good one which lists all the NFT trending articles, but often I'm not able to recall the name. So I'll put that into my book and make it available next week.
Great, thank you.
Sure. I can take one more question. Yep.
So
You think
Rohan,
this? Go ahead.
so what do you think, like, what is the main limitation of the NFT as of now?
Sure. I would say the main limitation is the cost factor. So the fact that as an artist, if you are asking me to pay that $50 or 5,000 odd rupees, that's a very steep amount. Yes, there are certain platforms that are doing it like for $2. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention one last issue. Just let me take it back to my, give me a second. There's one thing I forgot to mention. Yeah, are you able to see the mind map again?
Yes.
Yes.
Now you see this metadata written here. This is one of the very critical aspects I forgot to mention. On chain and off chain. Let me explain what that means. See, when I created this NFT, the question that you need to ask is what is the information which is being stored in the blockchain and what is the information which is being stored somewhere else. So when I created that NFT for my daughter's painting, some information, very little information is being stored in the blockchain, and the actual files that I'm uploading are being put up on the cloud server of the platform. Now, there is a very big problem in that. What if the platform shuts down after 5 years? You will be able to see your NFT basic details on the blockchain because that is going to be there forever. But when you go to actually see the detailed files to download them, nothing will be available because that site may have shut down. So that is why before you create NFTs, you have to see that where is the metadata being stored? Is all the data relating to the NFT going on the blockchain? And you will find in 100% cases so far, I have not found anyone which is doing it completely on chain. I'm finding most of them are putting some data on the blockchain. All the rest of it is going off chain. The problem in that approach is if that platform shuts down in the future, your NFT becomes worthless. So that is another critical aspect that we need to address. So the NFT platform that I'm working on, firstly should allow full KYC. Secondly, should not require me to do crypto payments. It should be directly connected to my bank account, credit card, and UPI, all kinds of payment. And thirdly, as far as possible, all the data should be available on chain. If for some reason it is not available, then there should be a choice given to the holder of the NFT to put the data on their own cloud. So that when I've bought the NFT and I've got the data with it, the hash of the data is in the blockchain, but I can store the data on my own servers so that tomorrow when I go to sell it, the new buyer can say, no problem, the data is coming, the hash is matching. I will now hold the data on my servers. And if we don't do that, the whole NFT thing will fail if the platform fails. See, today, if an exchange shuts down, doesn't mean Bitcoin shuts down because there are ways in which you can hold Bitcoin in your own wallet. But in NFTs, it's not like that. If the platform shuts down, you could end up losing access to the files. So that I believe is a very major issue that needs to be solved. I hope that's clear.
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. It was great speaking to all of you, and I'll put up information about my next session also very soon. Have a nice time. Bye-bye.
This was really great. Thank
Bye.
you, Rohas. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, sir. Bye bye.
Thank you.